Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another comic book review. And today's comic book review is none other than Paradise Towers, Paradise Found. So, what is Paradise Towers, Paradise Found about? Well, to anyone who hasn't watched it, there is a Doctor Who episode called Paradise Towers. And Paradise Towers was all about a bunch of cleaners, some youngsters, some elderly, and some kind of caretakers. And it was all of them living inside of this giant kind of block. However, Paradise Towers, Paradise Found is a kind of continuation from that saga with a kind of prequel written inside of it. Now, first, I think to start us off, I think I'm going to discuss the prequel for a very specific reason. Because the one thing that's always bugged me since I watched the TV show is we never actually found out who one of the characters was. We knew that he was kind of mentioned, he's not really shown on screen, but he's definitely the main villain of the whole Paradise Towers saga. So let's start off with the prequel. There is a guy called Preganon, and Preganon essentially is kind of this architect who designed the towers. Now, it turns out from the prequel written into Paradise Towers, Paradise Found, the prequel discusses that there was this alien life form who had basically come to this planet and was hired to design these towers. He was hired to kind of come up with this paradise for everyone to live in. However, this is on top of when the war is happening between their species and another species. Now, of course, a lot of the residents all get locked inside of it. That's how it happens in the Doctor Who kind of episode. However, it turns out that there was a revolt between the creator of Paradise Towers and the kind of people who were going off to war. They tried to hunt him down after a bunch of series of murders, and because he believed he was superior and his design was infinitely more palpable and he was the only one who could accept and really take in his design, he decides to kind of kill off anyone who gets in his way. However, when they eventually try to track him down, he's kind of trapped his brain inside of the tower itself. Now, they don't know this, but we learn this later on when it happens in the Doctor Who episode, and he starts using the cleaners to try and kill the Kangs, the oldies, and everyone who lives inside of the block, because he believes the only person who really kind of understands his block is him. Now that I've got the prequel part out of the way, let's get into the actual Paradise Towers, Paradise Found. This story all revolves around a character known as Vi 2. Now, Vi 2 is living up in Paradise, what she believes to be Paradise Towers, with her mates and her friends, until all of a sudden, one of her friends called Bubblegum something goes missing. When Bubblegum goes missing and can't be found, Vi 2 says that she has gone to thin air. Now, of course, at first that most really sounds mad. What's she going on about thin air? Essentially, she's saying that every time that people turn back up, they start to act very weird. Now, of course, Vi 2 is not believed on this, and it just seems like she's trying to cause trouble. So everyone pushes her to the side. On top of it, it's the death memorial of Pex. So there's this celebration that essentially happens every year, and it's all to do with the kind of cherishing of Pex. However, Vi 2 soon discovers that all of them are living in one giant simulation, and this is all with Pex, well, sort of Pex, and Pex explains to her that everything she knows is a lie and they've been feeding her up to eat her. However, the downside to Vi 2 is when she later on learns that her whole life is a bit of a lie. Turns out that she was born into a machine and her parents have been lying to her ever since about what her life is. However, regardless of that, her two mothers still love her the most, and she appreciates that. So she fights back against Pex, only to learn that he is Cragganon, who is trying to control her. On top of this, to make this plot even more bombastic and beautiful, there turns out to be this kind of other villain, which is the main center of the story, which is essentially there's this woman who's been having them all inside the virtual reality. Now, this woman essentially says to Vi 2, look, I came from a war across the stars. I saw paradise, so I seized my opportunity. Because everyone was so pliable, her and her soldiers basically brainwashed them into becoming cattle. She put them inside the machines, let them believe that they've been living in this perfect towers for years, so that they could basically fatten them up and eat them. Vi manages to get back inside of the simulation, wake everyone up, and start a revolt. Then her and the soldier have this massive argument before the battle about who's right and who's wrong. She also soon learns that a lot of her friends that were inside of the simulation aren't real due to the fact that they've been eaten, so they were given a kind of simulation backup as a kind of way to detract her from what's really happening. However, when everyone wins over the revolt and takes over the Paradise Towers once again and gets ready to try and rebuild, Vi 2 finds herself in another situation. She thinks that she's talking to Pex, and she thinks that Pex is honestly trying to help her. However, it turns out that Pex is Cragganon, and Cragganon is still trying to kill Vi 2. Vi manages to beat Cragganon once and for all, leaving him to die in the pool of Paradise Towers, whilst they take the disc that he was giving them to try and rebuild Paradise Towers. Now, whether or not this is just another part of Cragganon's plan to take back over the towers is anyone's guess, but it seems very prominent that at least one evil has been destroyed in Paradise Towers for now. So, what did I think of Paradise Towers, Paradise Found? I absolutely love this story. Not only because it goes into the prequel and gives me answers to a lot of things I've wondered ever since I watched the TV show, but I really love this story because they really understand Sean, Mason, and Salvo Betramo. I really do apologize if I butchered those names. You guys are absolutely sensational. The way that you guys have captivated this world and really taken that spin with it. I also love the layering of history where you've gone back, and for anyone who is trying to roughly remember bits of Paradise Towers, you've really dug in there with the lore. And for that reason, I have to give this a 10 out of 10. I just love this story, and I look forward to reading more of your work going forward. Until then, though, this has been this video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Stay beautiful, you beautiful people.